shows that the tribulation starts right after the rapture. And how do you envision that being right after the rapture takes place? What will the
the answer to that is rather disappointing. The answer to that is there's nothing in the Bible that shows you that the tribulation or Daniel's 70th week starts at the rapture. There's nothing. And the reason why you know that is because Paul, in his lifetime, is anticipating the rapture. Get 1 Corinthians 15 in one hand, and get 1 Thessalonians 4 in the other. Notice, is Paul expecting the Lord to come back while he's alive? Well, suppose he had. With the tribulation that started back then, when he was caught out, if it did, it sure mess up the Lord's chronology. The Lord's chronology got one day of the Lord is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years one day. In the Bible, the Lord's chronology, the Lord couldn't come back to reign on earth until the year 2000. Which reminds me to say that our chronology must be off. Because if he's going to come back and reign in the year 2000, you got about 6 months to have the tribulation. And of course, you know that isn't true. Now, I wish things were different where they were. I used to preach a message called the 7 Sevens. I'm preaching out about 10 years. And I'm sure the chronology on that thing is right as far as God is concerned. But I've said 100 times, if our chronology is right, when I speak, I always insert, I very carefully insert that. Old Ruckman said, Lord, come back in 1989. Didn't come. No, I didn't say that. I said, if our calendar is right, the second coming cannot be any later than, and I'll give you the date. And I always put in, if our calendar is right, if to cover myself. So, that's to cover my tracks, because our calendar might not be right. So I don't think anybody can say for sure it'll be then. But there's a variable. That's what they call a conditional clause. Now, I've never said the Lord's coming back. I said, if our calendar is right, it can't be later than so-and-so. And where we are now, I'm at the position now where I know our calendar is not right. Because I'm sure that 7 system, I'm sure that thing works. I'm certain of that one. Then he has to come back in 2000. Well, he doesn't. Then there's something wrong with our calendar. Now, there's always one other thing which is very distressing. I mean, anything that delays the Lord's coming distresses me. I mean, I want him to come now, see? When I say now, I mean now. I mean, never mind the service. Now, right now, before the service. And somebody said, well, when you talking about the Lord to come back in 1989, didn't show up, what did you think then? Then make a fool out of you. I said I was very disappointed. See, I'm looking for him. I don't care who's right on the date. If he messes up my time, says it's okay to me, just so he comes tonight. I said, no, I don't care. But he came at night. Now, you missed it, Ruckman. Thank God. Now, the other thing is this, which is very discouraging. Sometimes the Lord doesn't count the time we count. For example, if you read your Old Testament about the years between the Exodus and the building of Solomon's temple, you'll find over 111 years missing in there that aren't even mentioned in the chronology. And you'll find there in the book of Judges when Israel was out of fellowship with God. Well, if God don't count the time Israel was out of fellowship with him, then you don't know how he's got that thing figured out. He might delay till the year 2005 or 2010, 2020. I hope to God he doesn't. Amen. But he could and just not count it in his calendar. Your calendar would go around, but his wouldn't. His would stop, and for him it would still come out 2000. All right, here's Paul, 1 Corinthians 4, or 1 Thessalonians 4. Now watch this thing. 13, I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep. You sorrow not as others which have no hope. Then he's talking to people right then. He's writing to them right then and saying, don't give up hope. Why? For if we believe Jesus died, rose from the dead, even them that sleep in Jesus will God bring with him. He's telling that bunch of people to look for the loved ones coming back. Then, for this we say to you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain to the coming of the Lord. Why do you say we? He didn't say you. He said us. He's included himself. That guy is expecting the Lord to show up. We which are alive and remain, so forth and so on. 17, then we which are alive, he's planning on being alive when the Lord comes. We which are alive, he's expecting the Lord to come right then. And that thing is written back. What's the Schofield date on that? 1 Thessalonians. Look at the chapter 1. What is it? 54. In 54 A.D., Paul looking for him. which means the tribulation can be separated by all kinds of years. Not anywhere near showing up. All right, 1 Corinthians 15. 1 Corinthians 15, there's another case. 1 Corinthians 15, verse 51. I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, not all going to die. We, says us. We're not going to all die. But we shall all be changed. In a moment, the blink of an eye, so forth and so on, so forth and so on. So he's expecting the Lord to come. So there's nothing that gives you the gap between the rapture and the advent, or the rapture and the tribulation. It could have been any time. There's no way to figure the thing. And I've given up figuring. Now, I figured the last possible date. And the way I did it was I got Daniel's 70th week half over at Calvary, and only 3.5 years to come. I got that from one of my students. He's a fellow up in, what is his name? One of my graduates, Rowley. A fellow named Rowley. And he got it figured out. The 3.5 years of Daniel's 70th week took place in Christ's earthly ministry. And he got some strong stuff for it. And then when you cut there, then you get the church completely out of Daniel's 70th week. The church isn't in there anywhere. Because if Daniel's 70th week stops at Calvary, then the church age is a separate thing. You got 3.5 years sitting over here for tribulation. The last possible date for that thing to work out right was a year ago, Pentecost in May. But last year, when everything could work out with our calendar. And the Lord didn't come. Now, I had faith. I mean, I left my gates open on my 200-foot, 300-foot fence so my German shepherds would not be left there alone to starve behind the fence, so they could get out and forage around and get them food and get them water after I left. But I didn't have enough faith to get in a white sheet and go up on top of the mountain, like a JW, and quit my job and all that. And I've had at least 3 guys, students, who did that. We've shipped them. We've had at least 3 students who swear they knew exactly when the Lord was coming, and none of them were right. One of them's out in California. He phones me up every year and tells me he's finally got it. He's finally got it. He's been wrong 6 times. And so you can't tell. I don't know, and I've given up figuring. I'm through figuring. Because if our calendar's not right, folks, you can't figure it. You can't figure it. All you can do is say, we're going to say, here I come, ready or not. How many ever played kick the can? Let me see. Play kick the can? Some of you folks haven't lived, didn't really live to kick the can. And the guy who's he got his head up against a tree, and he's counting. And he's counting 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. He gets up there, he says, 80, 85, 90, 95, 100. And then he yells out, here I come, ready or not. And that's how it's going to be with this thing. You just be sure you're ready. No, brother.
Chapter 8, verse 14, talking about the 2,300 years, days, 2,300 days. My question on that is that the time period of the tribulation? And if that is, it only comes out to about 6.4 years. And, we're taught that tribulation is a 7-year time period. That's my question I have, because I was taught that by a church about 8 years ago, and I always wondered if that's the case.
This thing on? Now, the problem is this. The problem is that from time immemorial, we've been teaching, I picked this up from Clarence Larkin, that Daniel's 70th week is the tribulation. The standard way to handle that is to say that the saints are caught out here, and then this 7-week period starts, which is 7 years, for 3.5 years here and 3.5 years here. Now it's 1260 days here and 1260 days here. Now the one 1260 and 1260 will make a total in that thing of I guess something like that. Is that right? And well, the one he gave is this, which is shorter. The question he's asking is, is there only that much of the week left? If there is, then the difference here, something like 220 days had to take place before here, in which case had to take place back here. So there's a teaching that these 220 days took place in the book of Acts, And the standard teaching is that up till Acts 7, there's been no change in the chronology. The time is going right on into Daniel's 70th week. And then when it gets to Acts chapter 7, when the Jews finally reject Christ once and for good, the clock stops and doesn't pick up again till over here. When it picks up again over here, the difference in there is already taken care of back here. Now, that's one way. Now, the trouble with this thing is, another way is to say that the first half of Daniel's 70th week took place back here. Therefore, this is not there. And that's legitimate because Daniel's 70th week is not the tribulation. It's Daniel's 70th week. And if that thing is true, you don't have 7 years ahead of you. You only got 3.5. And the reason why that thing is probably so is turn to book of Revelation and notice everywhere where it's spoken of in the tribulation, it is 3.5 years every time it's spoken of. Never 7. Revelation 11:2. Revelation 11:2. But the court which is without the temple leave out and measure it not, for it is given to the Gentiles, and the holy city they shall tread under foot. How long? Yeah, in verse 3, but how many in verse 2? 42 months. How long is that? 3.5 years. Says it twice. Once in verse 2, once in verse 4, but it doesn't stop there. Chapter 12. Get chapter 12, and you get chapter 12, look at verse 6. The woman fled to the wilderness, where she had the place prepared for God. They should feed her 1,260 days. There it goes again. Watch it go again. Chapter 12, verse 14. And the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle. She might fly to the wilderness to a place where she is nourished for a time, 1 year, times 2 years, and a half a time, 3.5 years. But it doesn't stop there. Chapter 13, verse 5, on the Antichrist. 13:5, there was given to him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given to him to continue 42 months. Goes again. Now, those things there, you got a situation where there's only that much left. And Daniel's, when Christ shows up, the clock doesn't stop, the clock keeps right on going. And the reason why there may be something to that is Christ's ministry is 42 months. It's 3.5 years. When Christ begins his ministry, he begins at, he said he was about 30 years old when he began. About 30 years. And he'd been 30 years old at the Feast of Tabernacles. And tabernacles, to this tabernacle be 1, to that tabernacle be 2, that be 3, that'd be 4, but he was crucified the Passover. The Passover's in April. That thing's in September. September. This is March, April, Passover. 1, 2, 3.5. So Daniel's 70th week may be halfway over. And then the Lord cut the thing down at Calvary, and you got 3.5 sitting on ahead. In which case, this thing here wouldn't even work, this thing here. 42, let's see, times 30, that'd be 42 times 30. 0, 6, 12, 1,260 days, and this number here is way over that. 2,300, the difference in there. Way over that. Well, now the other way is figured as this. The Lord is contrary. You know that? The Lord is always trying to mess you up, and he always got something there. So sometimes I get kind of depressed when I read the Bible. Like Bill on there, Daniel, he says to Daniel, he said, I'm come to give you understanding. Therefore, no one understand that from the time of the going forth, and nobody understands. And I read the thing through 140 times, I still don't understand. All right, now come to the end of Daniel chapter 12 and look at this mess here. Now we got 2 figures already. We got this figure here, and that's for certain. It's something, and that one there. And it's certainly something. But now you get, we'll come here at the end of Daniel. Daniel 12, verse 7. I heard the man clothed in the linen which was upon the water of the river when he held up his right hand and his left hand to heaven, and he swore by him that liveth forever and ever, it should be for a time, 1, times 2, a half a time, 3.5. There's the 1260. But here's the trouble. Verse 11, and from a time the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that shall make desolate set up shall be 1,290 days. I don't match, but we're not through yet. 12, blessed he that cometh to the 1,305 and 35 days, 1,335. Now you got to figure all those in, and how they go in, I do not know. I worked out it for years. About the best way you can work out is say this, and even this has got problems. You've got to have a thing here where you got 1260. We won't worry about that, whether it took place now or later, but we'll be concerned with this one over here, like this. And you got a thing like 1260 and 1260, and then some other measurement from there to there, and some other measurement from there to there, and some other measurement from there to there. When you get a thing like that, you can have a rapture, post-tribulation rapture there. You can have an advent there. You can have the cleansing of the temple there, and the setting up of the millennium of the throne of David there. And the differences in these, are the differences in here, if you put them out. And I've got that in the chart, but I don't have my chart with me right now, so you'd have to make up your own chart on that. But you do that by putting those numbers, the difference in the days come in there, like the 1260 is there. See? There. The 1290 is there. And then this 1335 is sitting over here. And then this one here will have to come back into here someplace on the other side of that thing. And I'll tell you, you folks that are mathematicians, you work that out and let me know when you get it worked out, because when it comes to numbers, I'm no good at numbers at all. You guys, I would make a good public accountant. And so you folks have got some time on your hand, work that thing out. Let me know how it comes out. Oh, that's enough, yeah.
Well, along that line, if the first 3.5 were during our Lord's ministry,
Yeah.
how do we deal with the first rider on the white horse is supposed to be the offer of peace? And I believe the temple has to be built,
Yeah.
and all of that stuff, and yet
It's got its problems.
well, maybe I just thought about maybe the assumption. My assumption is that again, this has to start in that this last part of the tribulation has to start in at the rapture, but it doesn't, as you covered that. That's where all that can take place, isn't it?
Yep. Which means that this ride on the white horse could show up in here, although this wouldn't be part of the tribulation. It'd be preceding it. And you could get caught up there, or you could get caught up here. Either way, it's still a pre-tribulation rapture. See, if this thing is here, anytime you get cut out before here is pre-trib. So I haven't changed my position on that. I still got a pre-tribulation rapture. Now that building the temple, that's another one of them things. The question is how long it's taken to build it. The temple is built. The reason why he said that is in 2 Thessalonians 2, when the Antichrist comes, he sits down the temple of God. In Revelation chapter 11, where you read, the temple of God is there with the sacrifice and the tribulation. The temple has to be rebuilt before this thing here takes place. But then they're already working on that. They're already telling me, well, isn't the tabernacle called the temple? It is. It's called that. Matter of fact, James in Acts 15 says, I'll return and rebuild the tabernacle of David that has fallen. David didn't have any building. He had a tent. He had a tabernacle. But it turned into Solomon's temple. So when he said rebuild the tabernacle, he talking about rebuilding the temple. They use interchangeably. Did you ever read back at 1 Samuel where Eli sat on a post by the temple? There's no temple in 1 Samuel chapter 1. There's only a tent. How long would it take to put a tent up? Come up just like that.
Humble footbridge weathered gray, the iron reaper needs to slay the verdant wheat that grace.
2 weeks after Donald Trump announced moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, on Hanukkah, what you're looking at is a Hanukkah. Hanukkah has 9 candlesticks and or 9 lamps, okay? But the Jews dedicated this underground synagogue. Okay, now this is dedicated on the Jewish calendar, Hanukkah, which was December 19th. And it is 4 days after Donald Trump announced moving the U.S. Embassy. Guys, I spoke to people in Jerusalem that said they talked to architects which showed them the architectural plans for the Third Temple. When they did, the person saw the plans for this synagogue, which you're looking at here. So down below, you can see down below is the people. To the right is the wall, and up above, this is the synagogue. This is called the Chamber of Hewn Stone. It's in Ezekiel chapter 8. We have lots of videos on this. Okay, hopefully you've seen this, but this is part of the Third Temple, guys. It was connected to the Third Temple. Now, you say, but Leland, those walls in that place is Fortress Antonia. I agree with you. Okay, that's not what we're talking about here. The Jews believe that that wall and that place is where the Third Temple, the previous temples were. So that's where they're anticipating building their Third Temple. But this is part of it that's already dedicated. 4 days after Donald Trump announced he charged me to build him a house. Okay, this was years in the making, but it was dedicated 4 days after his announcement. Okay, so the Third Temple, parts of it you're looking at right here, underground, by the Western Wall. Okay, and again, that was just days dedicated. Dedicated in English means Hanukkah. In Hanukkah, 2017 is when Donald Trump announced that. And here you can see it. Okay, this was dedicated on Hanukkah. It's part of the Cyrus decree, it's part of the Third Temple. And then it's very important for us to watch what happens the next year on Hanukkah. That's what that Hanukkah is telling us. It's telling us Hanukkah is on dedication, major things will happen. That's right, we were on site in Jerusalem at the altar dedication. Here you see the altar, here you see the lamb in the priest's hand, the fire is lit, and they're throwing the lamb onto the fire. So this is the altar dedication for the Third Temple that took place during Hanukkah. I believe it was December 10th. There he's putting on the fire. 2018. So 2017, the Chamber of Hewn Stone. 2018, the altar for the Third Temple is dedicated. And there you see the lamb that was sacrificed, burning on the coals of the fire as a very, very ominous sign of the sacrifices spoken of in Daniel chapter 9.